Fractions to percents using cross products. Well, how do I change a fraction into a percent using cross products? Well, this is a method that you could use for any fraction to change it into a percent. And we're going to take a look at 6 application questions, and we're going to use cross products to change fractions into percents. So let's go ahead and try a few. In our first example, 5 out of 12 students have been to Disney World. What percent of the students have been to Disney World? Well, we know that 5 out of 12 have been to Disney World. And we'd like to know, well, what is that out of a percent? What is the percent of the kids that have been to Disney World? Well, we can use a proportion, and we can cross multiply. So 12 times x would be 12x. 5 times 100 would be 500. And now we have a nice, easy one-step equation to solve. And then all we need to do, and I'm going to use a calculator here, I'm going to do 500 divided by 12. We're going to round this to the nearest whole percent. So this, on the calculator, it's 41.6, and that's really the only number that I need to look at. So to the nearest whole percent, it's 42%. So 42% of those students have been to Disney World. A goalie stopped 19 of 21 shots on goal. What percentage of the shots did he stop? Well, 19 out of 21. We want to know, what is that fraction as a percent? What is it out of 100? So again, we're going to set up a proportion, and we're going to cross multiply. We're going to use cross products. 21 times x is 21x. 19 times 100 is 1900. And I have a nice easy one-step equation. So to isolate that variable, we're going to divide each side by 21. I'm going to clear my calculator. And 1900 divided by 21 would be 90.4. Again, we only need that first number. So to the nearest percent, that would be 90%. 6 of 17 students in Mrs. Jackson's class did extra credit. What percentage didn't do the extra credit? Now I'm actually going to solve this in one step. We want to know what percentage didn't do the extra credit. Now there are 17 students, 6 did extra credit, which means 11 of those students did not. And we want to know, what is 11 out of 17 as a percent? So I set up my proportion, I cross multiply, 17 times x equals 1100. I'm going to isolate the variable by dividing by 17 on each side, and 1100 divided by 17 would be 64.7. So to the nearest whole percent, that would be 65%. Let's try another one. Mr. Smith just purchased some new shirts. What percentage of the new shirts are polo shirts? Well, let's see how many shirts he purchased first. He purchased a total of 13 shirts. Now, how many of those shirts are polo shirts? 4 of them. 4 of the 13 are polo shirts. And we want to know, well, what percentage of those shirts are polos? So we set up our proportion. I cross multiply. 13 times x is 13x. 4 times 100 is 400. I have a nice easy one-step equation to solve. And 400 divided by 13 is 30.7. 30.7. So that would round to 31%. So 31%, or roughly 1/3 of the shirts, are polo shirts. What percentage of animals in the animal shelter are dogs? Well, let's find out how many total animals are in the shelter. We have 5, 10, 15, 20. We have 23 animals total in the shelter, and it's asking what percentage of the animals are dogs. Well, 7 of the animals in the shelter are dogs, 7 of the 23, and we want to know what that is as a percent. So we're going to cross multiply, use cross products. 23 times x is 23x, 7 times 100 is 700. I'm going to divide each side by 23 to isolate our variable. And then 700 divided by 23 would give us 30.4. Now, if you're using a calculator, you're going to see a lot of numbers on the calculator. You really only need to look at that number that's in the tenths position, so you know whether or not you're rounding up or not. So this would actually round to 30. 30% of the animals in that shelter are dogs. All right, we'll take a look at one final example. There was assorted colored candy in a jar. Mr. Smith will not eat yellow candy. What percentage of the candy would he eat? Well, first we need to find out how many pieces are in the jar. There are 13 total pieces, and he won't eat the yellow, which means he would eat 10 out of the 13 pieces. He would eat these, he would eat these. So he would eat 10 out of the 13 pieces, and we want to know, well, what percent is 10 out of 13? So we cross multiply. 13x equals 1,000. We've got a nice easy one-step equation. And let's see what 1,000 divided by 13 is. Comes out to 76.9. 76.9. So he would eat 77% of the candy. So that's how you can convert any fraction into a percent using a proportion and cross multiplying or using cross products.